Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're going to be talking about a recent update that Konami just announced. Actually, at the time that I'm recording this, it was actually just announced a couple of hours ago. And that is going to be something that we have been awaiting since pretty much the announcement of the Duelist Cup towards the end of November there. And that is, of course, going to be a ban list update. So Konami just announced, again, just a couple hours ago at the time of recording this, last night at the time you're probably watching this, that they are in fact updating the ban list following the Duelist Cup, which is something that we were definitely anticipating. Of course, you know, that happened last time, and from what I understand, Konami has done similar things with events during dueling, so no surprise there. So before we talk about what all got updated and changed, real quick, just want to mention that I do have my Patreon that I started relatively recently. We're actually going on about a month now of daily uploads over there, which is pretty rad. So if you're looking for some more daily Master Duel content outside of what I post on YouTube, feel free to check out the description below for the Patreon page there. You'll find some gameplay previews, as well as other video previews. You will find some exclusive gameplay to the Patreon there, Q&As, and a whole bunch of other stuff with more perks to come in the future. So if you want to check that out and support the channel, it's much appreciated. $5 per month is the cost, which is about the same you'd pay for a pack, and definitely more value than you get for a pack full of filler. So in any case, though, I'm not going to delay any further. I'm just going to go ahead and go here and show the Forbidden and Limited List update. So looks like it's going to take place a few days after the selection pack in January. That's kind of interesting. Usually they drop the Forbidden Limited List update like right at the start of the season, or more accurately right at the end. Although, to be fair, I guess they wanted to give players a couple of weeks to update their decks and collections accordingly, which is definitely, of course, appreciated. So let's go ahead and just scroll down here to the nitty-gritty. This is what we're looking for here. As always, the blue cards are cards that were going from, you know, more copies to fewer copies. White cards are fewer copies to more copies. So without further ado, let's just start right at the top with cards to be limited. We've got both Block Dragon and Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. I'll talk about the Starving Venom first because I think that one's a little bit less, you know, involved to talk about. It's pretty obvious why this card got limited. It was to prevent the Pendulum FTKs, which were fairly prevalent in this Duelist Cup, but not so much on ladder before that. It's interesting. I think that might be more of a case of, I actually don't know why that is the case, honestly. It could just be people not wanting to commit to the deck. It could just be like, you know, the deck is more popular, I guess, for a more like competitive event. To be fair, in a best of one format, if you're looking to rank up like in the Duelist Cup as quickly as possible, an FTK deck would definitely be one of the more, I guess, efficient choices in that regard. So it's actually not too much of a surprise to see Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom limited here. Actually, it's not a surprise at all. I think this is the case in both the TCG and OCG. It might even be banned in the TCG from what I remember. So definitely no surprise there. I think the more notable card to talk about here is Block Dragon. So Block Dragon to 1, or just Block Dragon getting hit in general, is kind of something that we anticipated would probably follow the Duelist Cup. If you saw the top 10 decks, there were, I think, 3 or 4. There was quite a few, a lot more than I was expecting. 60 card Adamant. Well, I don't know if they were all 60 cards. I haven't looked at the list in a couple of days now, but regardless, there were quite a few Adamantipator decks. And interestingly enough, their performance here in the Duelist Cup actually got Block Dragon limited for the first time in like almost a year. It's interesting, you know, these decks that don't see a lot of play on ladder, like suddenly you turn to the Duelist Cup and then they see more play, and then they hit accordingly. As far as Adamantipator goes, like, I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but who am I kidding? I actually love saying I told you so. It's actually one of my favorite things to say, but yeah, I really did think that everyone was sleeping on Adamantipator. I was myself, honestly, for quite a while. But about the time of the Anti-Spell Festival last season, having played Adamantipator quite a bit during that, of course, it being, you know, far and away the best deck for that festival, really made me realize, like, oh, this deck is actually still really good, and it never got any worse. It's just that, you know, it got, I don't even want to say it got power crept, because it really didn't get power crept at all. It just got, like, very slightly power crept, and, you know, I think with best of one ladder, with ranked ladder in general for a digital card game, you know, this is something I've touched on before, but you tend to see a lot more like experimentation with decks. You know, people are willing to bring a very experimental deck to ladder, whereas opposed to a tournament, people are going to definitely bring the more optimized build. I think in that regard, we start to see that people just kind of tend to gravitate towards something new on ranked ladder, which I think is why we start to see decks like Adamantipator fall off, or like Adventure Phantom Knight just completely fell off after it got touched by the limited list there. So as far as what Block Dragon going to 1 actually means for the deck, I think it means we're probably not a 60 card deck anymore. One of the big appeals of that Grass Looks Greener in Adamantipator was milling one of your 3 Block Dragon. Of course, trying to mill 1 card now among 60 is definitely much less feasible than 3. So, yeah, I think pretty much every Adamantipator deck probably goes down to 40 cards right now, just to make it more consistent. Now, here's the thing. Block Dragon, as we all know, or those of us who have played Adamantipator know, is still like a very searchable card. So this deck going to 1 is definitely not a death knell for the deck, but it will absolutely hurt the consistency. And again, I think in order to make up for that loss of consistency, pretty much every Adamantipator deck moving forward is probably going to be a 40 card build as opposed to 60 card grass build. So I know when I try Adamantipator post-ban list, it's definitely going to be a 40 card deck. Alright, so those are the 2 cards that got limited there. Now if we go to cards to be semi-limited, we have quite a few others here. We'll start with these 3 cards that were at 3, now going to 2. There's going to be Card of Demise, Alibur, the Jester of Despia, and Pot of Duality. As far as cards that were at 1, now going to 2, that's going to be Sky Striker Ace Kagiri, Divine Wind of the Mist Valley, Spellbook of Judgment, Predaplant Orpheus Scorpio, and Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. So let's see here. As far as Card of Demise and Pot of Duality go, it's pretty obvious why these cards got semi-limited. It was to definitely curb the consistency of stun and floodgate decks. Most notably, Runic had recently made Card of Demise and Pot of Duality see a surgence in play. As that deck, of course, any stun deck wants a lot of consistency to be able to consistently hit its floodgates, but it's very important for Runic to not only hit the floodgate, but also the fountain and at least 1, ideally 2 or 3 quick play spells in order to cycle some draws there. So Card of Demise and Pot of Duality definitely more important for, I would honestly say, yeah, more important for Runic than other stun decks in the past, which is probably why we're seeing them semi-limited here. I will admit, I'm fairly surprised not to see there can only be 1, not go down to at least 2. I really thought that was going to be the case, but none of the floodgate cards got hit. I think all in all, that's probably, again, I really did expect at least 1 of them. Yeah, I expected there can only be 1 to go down to 2, maybe Skill Drain and or Rivalry to go down to 1, but there can only be 1 going to 2. I really thought was going to happen. So we'll have to see how this pans out. I think it's an interesting tactic to hit the consistency cards rather than the floodgates, because to be fair, even if you limit or semi-limit more of the floodgates, the deck could, and other stun decks could just jam more copies of cards like Card of Demise and Pot of Duality. To be fair, there's also not that many other floodgates to semi-limit at this point. The only other ones that are really left that are consistently used are, there can only be 1 in like Summon Limit, but even then Summon Limit has definitely fallen off lately as, of course, with the popularity of Runic, a card like Summon Limit definitely becomes a little bit less appealing there. So, yeah, I think it's interesting hits there. I think all in all, it will affect the consistency of the deck. Moreover, I think it'll promote people to go towards non-pure variants of Runic, so I would definitely expect to see more like Invoked Runic or Synchro Runic or other variants as opposed to pure Runic. But I think that all in all, pure Runic will definitely still be a force. It'll probably still be tier 2. It might get bumped down a little bit in power level, but I don't think that'll affect it overall too much. So I think the other semi-limit here, as far as cards that were at 3 going to 2 now, is a little bit more interesting here. It's going to be Alibur, the Jester of Despia. So when we were talking about the data that came in from the Duelist Cup, I mentioned that I suspected either Alibur and or Branded Fusion would probably end up going to 2. I base this mostly just on trends that I had seen, Konami do in previous hits on Master Duel ban lists there. So, yeah, as far as that goes, I don't know that will hugely affect Branded Despia's performance there. It does definitely make the deck less consistent, of course. I don't know, it's funny, like, because we have Branded opening at 2, and now we have Alibur at 2. The Branded Fusion still being at 3. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, what you put in instead of another Alibur. I guess probably just, like, if you weren't playing Foolish Burial for the Despian Tragedy before, you definitely do it now, I think. I've been rocking that in my builds for quite a little while. Now I like the option to Foolish the Tragedy and go for the Alibur. Even if you can't, go for the Ad Libitum most of the time when you do that, it does at least get you some kind of a play. So, again, yeah, if you weren't playing Foolish Burial before, I would highly advise doing so now. to make the search for Aliber a little bit more consistent. Otherwise, I don't think the build necessarily has to change too much here. I think it just ends up taking an overall slight hit to consistency there. This one's definitely going to be felt more than the branded opening, of course. The branded opening is like most people, I don't know about most, but I think it was kind of 50-50 whether people were playing 2 or 3 before it got semi-limited anyway, so that didn't really affect the way the deck was built or played too much there. But this Aliber going from 3 to 2 definitely will. I suspect that some people may start trying Pot of Prosperity. I've seen people play this in Branded Despia before, and as far as that goes, like I've even tried it in Branded Despia myself, and I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, yeah, you do usually have like, you know, enough cards to throw out to get at least 3, if not 6, but more often than not, like, I really don't like throwing out that much of my extra deck just to maybe find some gas. It might be a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not mandatory, but it might be a little more important to do that now that Aliber is at 2, and maybe that will be the case. But moving forward, I personally think that I don't find myself in a world where I'm going to be adding another card like Prosperity to make up for that lack of consistency again. I think I'm just going to take the consistency blow and call it from there. Excuse me, sorry about that. So, alright, now that we've talked about the cards that were at 3 and went to 2, let's talk about cards that were 1 and went to 2. The top of which here is going to be Sky Striker Ace Kagiri. Wow, this I think might be one of the more impactful... Excuse me, I'm so sorry about that. I am actually currently recovering from a post-holiday sickness there. But in any case, Sky Striker Ace Kagiri. I think this will be one of the more impactful hits on the ban list. It might... There is a world where it might even be more impactful than Aliber going to 2. The only hit on this list I could see being more impactful than Kagiri going to 2 is Aliber going to 2, but Sky Striker Ace Kagiri, I know I said this when Widow Anchor went from 2 to 3, that this might be a huge power boost for the deck. You know, I'm taking the might out of it this time. Sky Striker Ace Kagiri going to 2, while we still have Engage at 2, that is a huge boost to the consistency of Sky Strikers. I think in the TCG we have 1 Engage and 2 Kagiri, I think? 2 Kagiri, maybe 3. Whereas in the OCG, they've got the multiple Engage and 1 Kagiri. But here in Master Duel, it seems like they're testing maybe giving Sky Strikers a few more tools back. As, you know, starting on the 10th of January, the deck will have 2 Kagiri and 2 Engage, which again is huge for the deck. Even just 1 more Kagiri adds so much consistency to the deck there, and I think it actually in some ways makes going first like more viable. Sky Striker is kind of one of those decks that can go first or second. I tend to prefer playing a going second build myself, but with Kagiri at 1, or at 2 rather now instead of 1, it becomes a little bit more viable to go first and, like, you know, Engage and then Kagiri and wheel back the Engage and use it again on turn 1. In the past, you know, that was a bit of a dicey play because it's your 1 Kagiri for the whole game, and blowing it on the first turn isn't, like, necessarily the best, but I think if you got even one more copy, like, that provides so much more, like, utility, and just a more toolboxiness for the deck to be able to access there. To be fair, I am not a dedicated Sky Striker player, so I don't know for sure. I'd have to do more testing before I could say definitively whether now you want to go first or second. It will probably be up in the air, if I had to guess, still, but I think Kagiri to 2 makes going first a little more viable. Hell, I think it makes playing Sky Strikers in general definitely more viable. I think if Engage and Kagiri were both at 3, I don't think I have to tell you all that the deck would be quite powerful and probably close to, if not, you know, approaching tier 1 again. So to have both of those cards at 2, you know, won't push a deck up to tier 1, I don't think, but I think it'll make Sky Strikers a bit more of a contender than they have been in the past in Master Duel. Yeah, no, I think having both these cards at 2, like I said, is a huge boost to the deck, and I, for one, very much look forward to trying out Sky Strikers post-ban list there. So, let's see, other cards that are semi-limited. We've got Divine Wind of the Mist Valley. That and Supreme King Dragon Darkworm going from 1 to 2, I think, is a result of the Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom going to 1. I've not actually played with, or honestly against, the Pendulum FTK, or at least if I have, they haven't gotten it off and I wasn't really any of the wiser. But regardless, I'm pretty sure that those cards are kind of used, I know these cards are used in like more FTK kind of centric builds, so I'm pretty sure these going from 1 to 2 is again a result of the Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom going to 1. Again, I don't have much experience with the deck myself, so I can't comment too much on it in that regard, but Let's see, Spellbook of Judgment going to 2. It's not really surprising. Like, you know, we saw Spellbook of Judgment come back to 1 when the Spellbook structure deck got released, and that didn't really do anything, so I think this card going to 2 is fine. Spellbook of Judgment could probably be a 3, and it would be fine, honestly. Which is really wild to say. I definitely remember, like, you know, I was playing competitively when Ravine Ruler / Spellbook was the... or not Ravine Ruler, just Dragon Ruler. Ravine Ruler came after Dragon Ruler. Dragon Ruler and Spellbooks, you know. So when I say, like, hearing myself say the sentence out loud, Spellbook of Judgment is probably fine at 3, is definitely very jarring and weird for me. But it probably is at this point in the game. Funnily enough, I actually, fun fact, true story, I actually tried when this structure deck came out here in Master Duel, the Spellbook one. I tried to, like, put together a deck profile for it because I was like, you know, it's a new structure deck. I'll make a video for it. I like Spellbooks, but honestly, like, it's probably the only time I've decided to try to show a deck, and I just, like, could not get enough, like, good games / wins to make a video. Like, seriously, I remember I was in either Plat 3 or Diamond 3, I don't remember, but I just, like, tanked my rating all the way back down to 5, and then lost even more games after that, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna skip this one, I think. So, again, yeah, Spellbook of Judgment, oops, sorry about that, bumped the desk there. Spellbook of Judgment going back to 2 should be completely fine, I don't see that being an issue. Protoplant Orphis Scorpio. I don't really know much about this card or why it was limited personally. But, I mean, I haven't really seen it do anything, so I think it's fine to go back to 2. It was probably part of a deck that was just not, or that was around when I wasn't playing, so. Sorry about that. It might also be another result of the Starving Venom going back to 1, although I don't think that's the case, because you don't really play that Protoplants in a Pendulum deck, right? So, yeah, I don't know, I could tell you, I wish I could, but yeah, Protoplants and this Pendulum FTK deck are really just not decks I'm personally too knowledgeable about, so, but still, I think despite the fact that they didn't see much play on ladder, it's still fine to hit them, because, you know, again, they're a bit more toxic for competitive events, and they're just kind of overall not great decks to play against in general, so definitely support those getting hit. And finally, down here, we have cards that are going back to 3, pardon me one moment. Excuse me, sorry about that. So, Wind-Up Carrier, Zenmaity, and ABC Dragon Buster. Those are going to be the cards that are going, I think they were both at 2, going to 3. And I think they actually both went to 2 relatively recently. It's funny seeing Wind-Up Carrier, Zenmaity here going to 3 after we had that recent viewer special where we saw a Wind-Up deck getting shown off. I suspect everyone who's running Wind-Ups is definitely going to be very happy for that. And we actually saw Wind-Ups have a decent bit of a showing in the Duelist Cup, more so than they had in... like literally any other point in Master Duel's history. I don't really ever remember seeing many wind-up decks, or any at all, outside of the most recent Duelist Cup. So maybe that's a sign that Konami is actually, like, not just paying attention to stuff that needs to get hit that's being used frequently, but maybe decks that are, like, lower power level but still being used semi-frequently. Like, just experimenting, giving them more copies of a card. So I wonder if they also noted an uptick in wind-up users. Yeah, I don't know, but either way, it's cool to see that card go to 3. Same with ABC Dragon Buster. You know, again, I wasn't really playing when this card was like tier 1, but that's very much not the case anymore. So, yeah, no, this card is definitely fine to go back to 3, I think, as well. And let's see. Oh, that's just the craft. I thought that was saying the ban list was only going to be applied for about a month. I was like, wait, what? No, that's just the getting the extra dismantle points there. So there you have it. There is our new Forbidden Limited List update there. I think it's a pretty interesting one. I think it's definitely appropriate for the current format. Again, I would make an argument that maybe there can only be 1 should have gone to 2. I think honestly be the only thing I would change about this list. I would throw that card probably going to 2. I think that should probably happen even with Duality and Card of Demise also going to 2 there. But I think overall it's a fairly good list there. So that is going to go ahead and do it for today's video. Guys, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end like that. I do apologize for, you know, interrupting my own commentary a couple of times with the coughing there. Again, hopefully I'm going to be able to get over this sickness relatively soon here, and we won't have that bothering us anymore. But again, just want to thank you all for watching all the way to the end. It means a lot, and it's a great way to support the channel. Other ways of supporting the channel, if you are interested, feel free to comment and or subscribe. Comments if it let me know what you think of the ban list here. I'm very much interested to hear your thoughts and cards maybe you think should have been on this list that weren't, or maybe cards that are on this list that you think deserve not to be. Either way, definitely let me know. I always look forward to hearing from you all there. Subscribing is going to get you notifications of when my videos drop, which just happen every single day, so you do have that to look forward to when you subscribe here on YouTube, and same again over at Patreon, like I mentioned at the top of the video there. I post daily Master Duel content over there as well, so you can check that out for some more daily action there. And again, supporting the channel through that means is a huge help, and I appreciate each and every one of you who does. But that's all the time that I've got for today. So without further ado, this is XLEX signing out. Hope you have a fantastic day.